So I'm Alice Helwig, and I'm here on behalf of Liquitex today. And we're really excited to tell you about a new product that we have, which is a bio-based acrylic. And so you're going to hear me rambling on about that. But also today, I wanted to give you some tips on how to paint trees. So we're going to be talking about color mixing. We're going to be talking about tree shapes and go from there. So I've got so much to share with you. I'm just going to switch over to the other screen. Okay, so bear with me. There we go. So one of the first things that I want to talk about here is this QR code that's here. And so I put this here just so that you could see it. Here, I was telling Kay I had problems with lights yesterday. So I just want to make sure this light is on. There we go. That should be a bit better. Um, so I actually glued this QR code, and you'll find this on the pots. It's actually right on there. And I just took a copy of that and I used the medium to glue it on because basically that's what medium is. It's what glues the pigment into the paint. And what's cool about this is some of this information today, I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at you. And so the information about the paint, if you want to look it up later, you just take your phone, hold it over this. If you have an older phone, you might need a QR reader. I'm married to an IT guy, so we always have like we're a generation behind, always on our phones. But my newest phone to me has it built right into the camera option, and that takes you right in. This little sample card is one that I did when I found out I was demonstrating about this paint. And it just shows you from mixing some of the primaries what different range of colors you can see. And this is always one of my tests. If you can get a really dark color like this from your pigments, you know you're dealing with good paint. Because if you get chalky colors, it's usually because either you're mixing white into everything, but you know that's just pure pigment. That's a blue and a red mixed together. And because I'm getting a dark color, I know, oh yeah, that has a high pigment load. So we'll just switch this over. Um, some of the materials we're using today, we're going to be using these sustainable recycled canvases. And this is a new product for Liquitex again. I love this that this is on here. So by using this little canvas, it's made from recycled plastic bottles. And so it shows you the number of bottles that you've saved from the landfill. So this is two of them. And this is with the collaboration Liquitex is doing with Waste to Wear. And so this is made from plastic bottles. And then the wood is, they use, I think it's 80% sustainable wood. So they're working on that number. On this one, the canvas that I'm using, I made a mistake with this. So I'm going to confess that I just used again the medium to glue that label on there, and it was cardboard. I should have used a lighter paper. Because of that, there's a little bit of a groove here, but that's okay. Sometimes it's always good. I find in my studio, I'm always encouraging myself to push things and try to make mistakes. Because it's good for us, and it's how we learn. So I've put out some of the colors. We're using just primary colors here. So the primary colors for Liquitex, and this is across all lines, is this is the titanium white, but then that yellow is the yellow AZO medium, yellow medium AZO. We're going to be using this red. This is a new red for me that I just adore. So it's Quin Crimson. And as we open up this pot of paint, you can see the paint is nice and juicy. I hope you can see that there. It's almost like pudding. Okay, I probably don't need as much as the red or the yellow, so I'm just going to put that there. You might be looking at this and going, okay, so what is this paint? What makes this paint so, special or so different? And this is bio-based paint. So that means that some of the resins have been replaced with sustainable, renewable substances. So those are things like, here, I'm going to just move that red over. It should be scooched a bit. So it's things like corn and algae, once things that were living, sugarcane, food waste. Just as I'm talking to you about this, I have the three primaries, and what I'm going to be doing is just mixing the secondary colors. Now, this paint has a really high pigment load, and because of that, that red is really strong. Yellow is always a weaker pigment. And so when you're mixing colors, if you look at a color wheel, it's kind of it's distracting because what happens, you see that orange is in the middle of yellow and red. So people usually use equal amounts. But if I just use this little bit into the yellow here and mix, and if you're painting along, do this too, mix up, pre-mix your colors. Look at that. I've got this beautiful orange, but I used mostly yellow for it. Okay, all of these things are all of the paints don't have animal sources in them. So for that reason, you'll find in this line, for example, they don't have lamp or they don't have it's sorry, I've forgotten which black. They have lamp black that is replaced ivory black. And the reason why is that ivory black has it's made from charcoal bones. So it's an animal product. So, all of these are plant-based. You'll notice that as I'm mixing the paint here, it's all just gorgeous colors. Look at how dark that purple is. I actually want a little bit more purple here. So even though we're going to be using a lot of green in our paint, to our painting today, I'm mixing up the other colors as well because I want to be able to alter the green. All right. So we've got all of those. If you have any questions, by the way, Kay's monitoring the questions on the side. And
we just had one so far.
Oh, sure.
What's the blue color that you're using?
Oh, sorry about that. It's, you know what? It's phthalo blue. And phthalo blue is the reason why we're using these three colors is that they're the modern pigments and they're slightly transparent. So with that, you can get the most gorgeous purples with this blue and also turquoises. And if you're using something like ultramarine blue, for example, it's a little bit grayer, the mixes. And so you don't get those really, really gorgeous turquoises. But with the phthalo, you do. I used to work at the art center here in Calgary, and one of the other instructors who worked with the kids, she was hilarious. She would tell the kids that phthalo blue is really good, but it's a bit of a bully. So, only let a little bit come out to play. And you'll find that it's really a strong pigment, but it's quite lovely. All right, let's talk about the mediums. Thanks for that question, by the way. I'm going to, as I said, Kay's going to be feeding me questions along the way, and there's times throughout that we're just going to stop and I'll switch cameras and we'll take your questions. So, I love questions. That's how we learn. And sometimes, you ask a question, there's someone who's a little bit shy. They might not feel comfortable to ask a question, but, usually there's other people thinking it as well. So thanks for that. When you go to mediums, always a big problem. You go into Delta Art, I'm sure there's shelves full of mediums, and you go, oh my gosh, like, do I even need this? Like, it seems like another additional cost for the paint. And we're already, looking at our grocery bills. We just bought groceries the other day again and went, oh my gosh. So you think, do I even need it? But I'm going to let you in, if you buy the mediums, there's so much benefit to your paint. And so what the mediums are colorless paint. Now, this is a heavy body medium. You open it up. This is the gel one. Let me just grab a clean knife here so that I don't get purple in my medium. And so you look at the texture of it. So the gel mediums like this are good to add to your paint. In fact, you can take it and add it to a little bit to each of your paint piles. And that's going to do a couple of things. One of them is that it's going to expand your paint. Another thing that it does is that it can change the consistency of your paint. And what we're going to today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how it also can make your paint more transparent and thin. So we're going to be using that. Now, when you look at this medium, this is the bio-based medium, and you look at the jar and you go, oh, look, it's green, it's awful, it's gray. And you go, oh, I don't want to buy that. Looks like something happened to that medium. It actually is okay. When I open it up, you say, oh yeah, that's like the medium we know and love. And the reason why it's in this jar that seems kind of green and gray is because the jar is from recycled materials. And so what they're using is they're called rPETs. And so here, I wrote this down. I have it on my wall here because I knew I wouldn't remember what the name of it was. Um, Here, let me just pull some of this out while I'm doing this. Yep, rPETs, the recycled polyethylene trephthalites. Okay, that's a mouthful. So that means is that these are made again from recycled materials, things that normally would have gone into the land dump, and instead they've made these jars. And Liquitex would really like you, because you might be looking at this going, well, how come she's not using tubes? And the reason why is that for this line, they're using these little pots because you can reuse them. And if you use a tube, I mean, we all love tubes. They're convenient. And I do a lot of plein air painting, so it's easy to take tubes, but you can't recycle this. And you can squish all the paint out, that you want on it, but you're going to find that in the end, what happens is that you just have to throw it away. With the pots, you can clean them out and then reuse them. Now you'll notice as I was talking there, because I need more yellow. Yellow and white, we always joke at where I teach that those are the two colors we're always out of. This is a heavy body paint, and I just wanted to show you that you don't need to go out and buy a whole bunch of new bio paint. If you want to try it out, you can use it with your existing paint. There's nothing wrong with it. They're both this heavy line and this one are professional grade paints. All right, so next thing I want to talk to you about, we're going to get into the trees. Are you ready for that? It's been a lot of talk about product and mixing so far. So this is a little demo that I did. Let me just switch here so we can look at the other camera. Now, this is from a little exercise I did with some of my students. And so many times when we're painting trees, what happens is that we don't see the tree for the forest. I'm looking at everyone's face here and I see Judy. So hi, Judy. So I'm missing Judy because when Judy comes to class, she usually brings cookies. I don't have any cookies here. So, but when you look at the shapes of trees, look first at the general shape of them. Is it a triangle or is it a circle? This middle one, this vase one, was really interesting because after we talked about that, people went away for the next week, and they came back and they went, oh, I can't believe how many trees I'm seeing in that shape. So this is a really fun thing to do in your sketchbook. To make this, I used acrylic and medium, and I just painted the shapes, and then I used an artist pen later on to go in and draw the shapes of the trees. It's a great little exercise for your sketchbook and a way to learn about it. Now the tree we're painting today is actually a tree that's in Dalhousie across the schoolyard from me. And it's more of this shape here. So there's different circles in that shape. So that's how we're going to start. One of the things that I don't typically do is I don't use pencils. So that might kind of surprise you, but we're all in this mentality that, oh, we draw it and then we color inside the lines because that's how we were taught, hey, with coloring books. And that actually works against what we're doing. I'm just mixing some of that medium in there into the paint. We can do that. I want this to be very transparent. So I'm just going to put a little bit. Let me just check that you can actually see my mixing here. Okay. A little bit of paint, and then I'm going to use a lot of medium. And I might have to change this because just when I did that and I looked at it. I thought, you know what? I bet that that is a little bit light. Yeah, let me just darken that up because I want you to see it. So how to darken it up? Well, you just add a little bit more paint. Now, the reason I'm putting the medium in there is I do want it to be, excuse me, I do want it to be transparent. And so we're going to start there. There's a tree mass there. There's a tree mass over here. There's one here. Now, when I'm doing this, I think variety is the spice of life. This one and this one look the same. So let's make one of them bigger, okay, in a different shape. There's one down here. I don't want to make them the same. So when I do this, I'm going to move this a little grouping down here and then here. And as I'm doing this, I'm actually looking at a reference. This is a tree. I've painted this tree so many times. And then here. Now, if you make a mistake, it's no big deal. It's just acrylic. I'm just, if I looked at that and I went, oh, gee, I don't know if I like that. I can just take a wet cloth and go, oh, yeah, okay, here we go. Wiped it off. It's all good now. Actually toned the canvas, which is a lovely thing. And then, just use use a different color and start again. So, okay, here we have this. I've used red this time. Let's push it back more to the orange. And then another shape here. So you do this through direct observation. That actually is the best way to learn how to paint. Now, as I'm doing this, it might be, if you're a beginner painter, you might be a little surprised that I didn't start with the sky and paint the whole sky blue and then put the tree on top of it. And I have to tell you that I was a self-taught painter. So I started when I was 12 years old. One of my teachers gave me some acrylic paints, and what's really cool about that is, I painted all the time, and I'd go out behind our house in Lethbridge into the coulees and paint. And I used Liquitex paint, which is really fun. So it's like I've come full circle again. I've got this a little bit darker than what I want, but that's okay. I'm just going to leave it. But I'm using lots of medium on there. And as I said, the medium extends the paint. So, if you look at a tube of paint, that's the pigment is the most expensive. So if you can add a bit of medium into your paint, it'll just extend the paint as well. How much you add, it's not really a recipe. It really depends on what type of effect you want to get. If you want to work with more transparent layers, on my YouTube video, I just have one where I'm glazing with the whole time with the mediums. Okay, so now let's get to some of the fun part here. With this tree, it was so cool because what I loved about it was because there was I'm reaching for the orange because there was light on this tree that made this trunk this beautiful orange color. And so that's what we're going to start with. I'm going to, if I need to make a brown with this, I can take something like the purple and mix it with the orange. It looks a little bit green there, so let's just take a little bit of red into it. Okay, now we've got a really nice brown. Just because you have a tree doesn't mean that all the branches are going to be brown. That's a good thing to observe and to look at different trees and see, when you draw them or when you paint them in, that some of them branches are going to be darker because the light is hitting some other ones. They're going to be lighter. I don't have to put every single branch in here. What I'm doing is I'm selecting. An artist, that's always what you do, is you select and pull out a couple of branches. Okay, there we go. When the branches meet the trunk here, there's a little wedge. And that's because that whole trunk has to support this branch. And so when you look at trees, you always see that little thickness at the, part that's joining to it. Okay, I think for now that's probably okay. Now we're going to do something again that might surprise you. I was talking about how when we're painting, You don't need to. So that's just a big pile of medium that I have there. There's a, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to take some of this blue. Now, I'm going to start with very little blue because typically in your sky, what you want is it to be the lightest area. Now, I was talking about painting around things. And this is what we're going to do here. I'm just going to put in some sky. I'm going to interrupt some of those perfect shapes. And I could even go a little bit darker there with the blue. So sometimes you don't know that. And you'll notice I'm mixing a bit of orange into the blue. You might be thinking, well, why is she doing that? It's because that's a way to neutralize the blue so it's not so bright, so candy like. It's more of a nature color. In nature, you're going to see a lot more grayed down colors than you do rather than pure colors. So when I was in art school, okay, I told you that I started painting when I was 12, and I'd paint the whole sky and then put the tree in. And then in art school, they didn't really teach us how to paint, but they taught us a lot about color. And one of the exciting things is that we came up to the big city. So we came to Calgary from, I took art school in Medicine Hat. And what happened is that we were at the Mutart Gallery, which is no longer around, but it used to be by the Mona Lisa. And this one fellow was selling off his European collection. So you can imagine how excited we were. And I stood in front of a Passario and started looking at it. Now, Cezanne says everything we need to know about landscape painting, we can learn from Passario. And when I looked at that, remember, I was used to that thin blue, and you made it thin because you didn't want the brush strokes to show, and then the thick layering of the tree on top. And I'm looking at Pissarro, and he has these little tree holes, and they are big, huge, huge gobs of paint. And he also had where sometimes around the background of the sky, he had thick passages of paint, and some of the painting inside the tree was thin. And that was a boggling moment where I just kind of went, oh my gosh, what's that about? And so that's got me thinking about how do people paint and how do the masters paint, and starting to study that and realizing that I'd taught myself wrongly. And it's interesting because so many beginners that I know, that's how we all start, is with that layering of one thing on top of the thing. But in painting, if you think about it as getting into puzzle pieces, you're going to get so much further ahead. Okay, so I'm taking some of this purple, and look, it's still wet. A lot of times people don't like to pre-mix their colors because they're worried that, oh, it's acrylic, it's going to dry. I'm haven't got to the tree yet. And you notice that I didn't mix a green yet. There was a reason for that. We're going to come back to the green, and I wanted to show you how to alter the green. And so we'll get to that. I'm just throwing in these colors first of all and giving myself a little bit of structure to work off. As soon as I put that dark color on there, it's going to pop out. It's showing me a lot of things. One of the things that it's showing me is that, oh, there's a high contrast here. So this is a sunny moment of the day. This photo was actually taken, in the golden hour. I love painting in that hour, but it's just about 6 o'clock. And one of the reasons that that's fantastic is you have this beautiful, orangey light. So that's one of the reasons why I started with the orange. So we have all our paint set up here. I think before I go on, I'm gonna show you about green. We're gonna give you a little lesson in mixing green, but let's just switch to the other camera. And do we have any other questions before we continue? That gives you a chance to catch up a little bit too. My class always complains that I paint too fast. So yeah, I see people nodding their heads. So do we have any other questions? Nope, I think we're good then. Okay. Don't be afraid to ask questions. All right. So we're our first job as a painter is to get rid of the white canvas. And so I still have this stuff here. This looks so dark now because it's compared to white. So we're going to do some mixing and mix up our greens and then come in. So again, the this paint, I said they took some of the resins and replaced them with biological sources. So those are things that are made from once living organisms that can be regrown or replenished. And so this is better for the environment. But I am you might ask yourself, because when you look on here, it'll have the percentage, and the percentage in this one is 48%. Sometimes they go higher to here. What does the red one is 43%. Sometimes it's an average about 50. Sometimes it goes a little bit higher. And so like the yellow is 52. So you might be asking yourself, well, why didn't they just make them so that they are all 100% from these sources? And the reason is that the chemists have been working with this product and they want to make sure that it's of high standard, and that became their priority. So they want to make sure that there's lots of pigment in the colors. And you'll see with this green, there really is. They want to make sure that it's compatible with other Liquitex products. So with Liquitex, you can use anything. You don't have to worry about, oh, can I use that medium with this ink or with this gouache? It's all good. Because this is an acrylic, you can use it with other acrylic products from other companies. But I think this part is so neat because what they do is they have a group of people who basically are paid to test the materials and to try to wreck them and see how far can they go destroying the paint. And then knowing, by doing those different tests, they know, okay, we can't offer that paint because it starts not to meet our high standards. So that's why they've only gone 50%, because they're saying technically right now they can't do it any higher. So I'm just going to take some yellow, and I'm going to take a lot of yellow here.
We had one person ask if they could see the reference photo, if that was available.
Um, I have a reference photo, but it's put away. So I can painting off. Isn't that funny? I've painted this so many times. I'm painting off this painting. And I'll try to see, because I cleaned up my studio for this and I think I threw it somewhere. So I don't know where it is. Sorry about that. Yeah, I should have had that. My apologies. So with green, we know that in school we learn green is made from yellow and blue. And usually I don't um I don't use jarred greens. Like I don't use pre-made greens. But I wanted to show you this green is really cool because it's a single pigment green, which means there's one pigment. So when you look on the side of it, it says PG. P is for pigment, G is green, and then there's a number there, and that tells you the code for that color. Now in school we know, okay, we want to lighten this color. If you do something like you mix a white with it, this green is not too bad. Sometimes they turn really minty, and this green, it's kind of a grayed out green. So, and sometimes in trees you do see that white color, but right away you're going to notice if I use white to mix, what happens, the color gets really grayed out. You'll notice I'm mixing them and then I'm scooping them into little piles, and that's how you keep your paint wet longer. If you take it and you spread out your paint, like I've done on the other side here, there's more surface area and then it dries quicker. Well, that's an okay green, but if I painted the whole picture just using those colors, oh my gosh, it's just gonna look a mucky mess. So let's start with just a little bit of this green into this yellow, because as I said, the pigment loads are quite high. Look at this green. Oh my gosh, you get this. I could do this all day, just sit and mix colors. This gets really exciting. You get this beautiful apple green. And then if I wanted to mix a bit more green into that, yeah, look, I'm getting this nice sort of spring green with the yellow. And so that's what we learned, remember that book, What We Learned in Kindergarten? We learned, okay, you want to lighten a color, blue is blue and yellow make green, so you can add yellow to the green pile and make it lighter. You can do the same thing with that blue. Now this blue, remember we said this blue is really strong, so rather than mix all the green into that, I'm just going to put a little bit, sorry, I've got a bit of water there, a little bit of blue and then some green. You can add a little bit of water to your paint. The recommendation is no more than 20%. I try to do even less than that. And what happens when you add the water to the paint? Like there is water already in the paint, in the manufacture of the paint. But if you add too much water, it starts to break down the acrylic film. Well, let's go all the way. Now, this is a great little thing to do, like pour yourself a coffee one day and take your paints, and then, you could do little paint swatches of mixing all your other colors with it. What happens? But try to keep it the bias of the green. So we have that green. That's nice. A lot of times that's where people stop. They go that green and this green, and then they go, okay, that's it. Well, what happens if we were to take that orange, that secondary color that we mixed, and I might even make that orange a little lighter because that's pretty strong. Okay, so we have this lovely orange. What if we were to take that and put some green in it? So we'll start with just a little bit first. And that might surprise you that you put orange and green, but look what happens. You get this beautiful sort of olive color. And we could even take that and lighten it with, a lighter orange, or just even by putting more, because it already has a bit of red in it to make the orange, put a bit more yellow. And you get just this lovely, it's a little bit warmer than that first one that we did. So that's kind of cool. Well, let's keep going. What happens if we take red and we put red into the green? So we're going to take this little green patch here, put some red. So then we get kind of a brownie color. That's interesting. That's sometimes you can't see that till you put a bit of white in it. And you can see there, it's really graded out, but it makes it kind of a brownie greeny color. And again, if it goes too brown, all you have to do is just pull back and put more green into the mix, because we do want it all to be green. I'm keeping this puddle nice. Remember, we said too that if you want, you can add medium to your paint, and that's another way of keeping the paint going for longer, extending how much paint you have. It's kind of cool because people complain about acrylics drying too fast. If you use the gel medium in it, what happens is that it keeps the open time longer. And so because of that, you can paint with the paint longer. It dries slower. Now, purple and green, you think, what are we doing? Now, this purple again is really strong. So let's just start with a little bit and see what happens. I'm going to scoop up both of those little pieces of green and put the purple in it. Well, now I have this lovely dark green. So by doing this, you're working with not only with making different greens, you start working with the bias of the color. So some of them are cooler greens, some of them are warmer greens. I'm going to just mix that all in there. So we now have this whole range of greens. Now, because we've taken the time to do that, and as I said, each one you can add a little bit of medium to. That's just going to keep it going for a little bit longer. Now we're ready to start the tree, finally. Okay, we're halfway into the class, and finally she's getting to the greens. Now this is something, again, one of my favorite painters. I first painted a copy of his painting. I say I was 5. My mom says I was 4. So I don't know. She usually has a better memory than I do. But I painted a copy of a constable painting. And there's a wonderful quote by a critic of Constable, and it actually was a positive critic's quote, and it talks about how with Constable, the secret to his paintings is that he's using all these greens. Now, as we're painting this, I'm still using my big brush. A lot of times people think, oh, we need a little brush for that. I'm going to just keep with this big brush. This purple is still wet. So I can drag some of this over the purple, and that's okay. Now, if you think of each of those little balls, and we to think, okay, where is the light coming from? The light's coming from up here. So if this part down here would probably be in shadow. So I've started with, and I could even go to some of my darker greens and put some of that at the bottom. And at the top here, I'm washing out my brush. You'll notice that when I wash out my brush, I use a rag and I pull the water out. Let's go to some of these really nice light colors, because at the top of the tree, that's where the light is coming. So it makes sense that those are going to be the areas of the tree that are lighter. A lot of times people, as I said, they'll start with a dark trunk and everything, they'll put every branch in and everything is painted, sort of the same, but you want this variety. So this is the orange color that I've added in there. So you might even want some of that underpainting kind of peeking through. That's okay. We can even, if you want, we can even go into some of that white mixture that we mixed and just, use some of that too. Maybe it's better over on this side. I can even take my brush and put it down, hold it differently, and take it and try different marks on here. What happens if I roll my brush? If I need to mix a color, I don't even wash my brush out. It's all green. So I'm gonna go to just a different green. Let's go to this darker one here. I'm paying attention to the edges here when I get to the edges of my painting, the tree edges. And I put that color down for the sky, but I might come back and change that. I'm going to be trying to use all of those different greens that I mixed. And this, look what's happening there. And there's something about when we're painting. I've been painting, as I said, since I was 12. I still do that. It's like this shape is too close to this shape. And there's something about how we work that, we just love that symmetry, but it's not good. So I'm going to come back and address that. I'm going to do that maybe by pulling that down a little bit to join there. And then I'm going to come back and repaint the background again too. As I'm going down, as I said, it's going darker. If I'm covering some of those branches up, that's okay. I can come back and repaint them. There's going to be some highlights down here, but they probably won't be as bright. Unless, of course, if it was backlit, then you would find it on the edges. But you're not going to have as light of, colors at the bottom as you in the shadow as you do in the top. So there's a little spot there, and I have to decide when I'm looking at that what's happening there. Sorry, there's a real glare on that. Is that a bit better? There we go. Yep. So some of this, sometimes at the very bottom here, there's a bit of a reflection. And so you can do that. You can also change tools. So let's put, because if the light is shining on there, it makes sense that, on some of this grass that it's shining. Now, I don't want people to stop at the grass. And if I put lots of detail in the bottom part here, if I start putting in every single little blade of grass, that's what's going to happen. People are going to look there. And to me, that part is just a means to travel up and to look at this other part of the painting. And so, I can mix right in. This paint is so juicy and buttery. It's just so fun to use. I can put it on with my palette knife. That means I'm going to get a thick passage of paint. And then, if I want, I can pull up the other color. Come in. I'm going to put a little bit of the greens down there. Sometimes you'll see at the bottom here, you'll see just a little reflection off what's underneath, and you'll see that come up. Let's just fill in that hole there. All right. Do we have any questions?
People were mostly asking what the green was, and I said it was chromium oxide green.
Yes, yes, that was the one that was listed on the supply list. So chromium oxide green. Um, as I said, most of the time I make my own greens. If you mix, here, let's just show you that. You can mix a green with this phthalo, and it's absolutely beautiful, but it's more like Ireland than it is, Alberta, how where we live. So I'm going to take some blue and that green. Look at that color. That's just with the primaries. You get this beautiful, it's kind of like a candy color. And if you want, you can put some of that in there, but if you just rely just solely on that, it's going to be too bright. Sometimes it's like I'm really loving it against this sort of grayer green that we're using because it gives you a nice contrast. But if you wanted to do that, if you didn't have the chromium and you thought, okay, I'm just going to use my primaries to make a green, still sit and do that little exercise about pulling in the secondary colors and seeing what you can do with it because it'll help you out. Now I have a smaller brush here. I haven't used it yet. I think what I'm going to do right now though is I'm going to address that sky again because I I'm going to come back and paint it once again. And so just because I've painted it once doesn't mean I have to settle there. You don't have to settle. I'm going to pull in a little bit darker at the top, and I didn't quite put out enough white. It's typical. You always run out of white and yellow. So I'm just going to pull out a little bit more. When you're using your paint, you want to make sure that you're capping them up. So I was telling you about these chemists who have this great job of testing the paint and just seeing how far you can get away with it. You don't always have to paint up, straight up too. So I'm just going to lighten the sky here a little bit and then just pay some attention to those edges. Um, and just as I'm doing that, I'm going, you know what? The light's coming from here. So this should be the lightest. So it's not pure white. It has a little touch of blue in it. So one of the things the chemists are testing the paint for, they have, you want to test for light fastness. And so this means that the paint doesn't fade. So I was just talking to one of my students the other day about another one of my favorite painters, which is Turner. And they were talking about, oh, they've seen Turners and, they're always so gray and, oh, they just don't get it. And I was going, wow, interesting that you said that because there's a famous letter was put out by Windsor to Turner, and it was or pleading with him that please, Mr. Turner, don't use this color. It's fugitive, and what that means is that it's going to fade over time. And Turner's reply was like, "Well, too bad. I want to use that color." So it was a kind of a rosy pink color. So over time, of course, that color has faded and it's become this gray color. So we don't get Turner's true, um, you know, uh, um, scope of what and vision of what he wanted because of the paint that he used. So the way that they test to see if the colors will fade is that they have it looks like a big oven. It's a Q sun machine, and it's a chamber for xenon gas, and that produces ultraviolet rays. So they put that in for 300 hours. So they do a little painted sample, and they'll stick that in. I just want to turn this right side and see what's happening. Okay. Um, and so they put it in for 300 hours. That's equivalent of 100 years. And then they test the integrity and go, okay, so how does this paint stand up? I'm just bringing some of that white lightness down into the top of the tree and just simplifying it a little bit. Some of this trunk here I don't like as well because it's too thick there, isn't it? So let me just wash and get another color. Another one of the tests that they do is called a freeze thaw test. And it just my brother's a chemist, so I just get a real kick that chemists are being paid to do these tests. And for that one, that's a structured protocol in not only the art world, but in science. world, and what they're testing for is whether or not the materials stand up to that. Do they have the same consistency? Is the integrity of the paint film going to be good? Does it affect the other qualities of the paint? So they do, just recently I had some paint delivered to me, and it was when it was that really cold spell we went through. Do you remember that, when it was like 30 below? And of course I was concerned about it. So I'm waiting by the door, with bated breath, waiting for my paint. And I got it right away, but it had been on the truck for a while. So it was frozen solid. And so you don't have to worry about that with Liquitex, because they do freeze thaw cycles. So if that happens to you, all you have to do is take the paint, and you just want to put it on the counter and let it thaw at room temperature. Don't cook it. Don't, do other things to it. And you'll find that it works fine. When they test it in the factory, what they'll do is they'll do 20 freeze thaw cycles. So that seems a bit extreme, but it's just, again, to test that, okay, is this okay? Is this going to work? As I'm doing this, I'm just taking some of that, and I could even do this with another tool. I'm taking some of that orange that I had mixed earlier. I'm mixing a little bit of brown in with it as well. And I'm just adding some more branches here. And I can do that with a different tool here. With the knife, the trouble with the knife is that you get really straight lines. We can use that to our advantage. So, if you have, like, on the edge here, I want a nice straight line, so I can do that. I probably will be taking a smaller brush and going back into that. But you don't have to draw a branch for, every one, but every once in a while, the branches will be peeking through, and that helps with the structure of the tree. So here, we'll just put a couple in here. The palette knife works great for that, just using the edge of your palette knife. And again, you just want to watch that you're not getting too regular with it, that we're not using it just to stamp in, that you actually have have some variety. Let's go to this little brush. So this actually, I know Delta sells these. These are Liquitex Basics brushes. They're actually a pretty good brush. It's a nice soft brush. So I can come in here and just alter some of those edges that I don't like. Like this one, I want it thicker, as I said, that wedge shape here. I can come back in with, it's amazing what type of colors you can get away with here. I'm just going to add a little bit of red just to pop that out a little bit. I'm feeling that I'm losing this part of the tree down here when I look at it. So let's go a little bit. We're going to use some of that orange color that I mixed with some of that lovely phthalo blue and yellow mixture. So much of the times when you're painting, really what you should be thinking about is this lighter? Is this darker? What is the temperature of this? Again, I still don't like what's happening over on this side. This and this is too much the same. So let's just take a little bit of red in here, break it up a little bit, and then maybe go back to that purple and just add some of that. Just a little bit of the drawing in there. So Liquitex is it's interesting. They're a B corporation, so B stands for the betterment of all. One of the things that to get that accreditation, you have to do it every 3 years, and you're you're promising to a whole list of regulations, and one of them being, that you're committed to transparency and accountability. The other thing too is you might not know about Liquitex is that they're owned by Colart, and Colart is a huge company. They own a lot of different art materials, so they also own Winsor Newton. in the UK, and there's one. I'm going to apologize for my French because it's so bad. I'm embarrassed about it, but it's called Le Franc Bourgeois. That's a really old French company. It's about 300 years old. They own Conte Paris, Charbel. For those people who like to do face painting, they own a company called Snazaroo. And underneath that umbrella, it's owned by Cole Art is owned by Linden Gruppen, which is a family-run company. It's actually owned by a Swedish lady. So Liquitex is an American company, but they're a global company. The paint is made in Le Mans, and one of the things about the Cole Art of companies is that they have agreed to a science-based target initiative. So it's called the SBTI, and that's for net zero emission reductions by 2035. That's only 10 years away. And so there's some really neat things that are happening because of that. So all the paint is manufactured. Liquitex paint is made in Le Mans, France. And it's on my bucket list now of a place that I want to go visit. So they have decided that they need to reduce water usage. And so they've started collecting rainwater. And so they have reduced their intake of water by 15%. They're solar powered. They've committed to using less waste. And so part of this line is they're not just talking the talk, they're trying to do the walk as well. And so I find that really quite interesting. All right, so final little bits and pieces here. When I was putting in these little marks here, look what happened here. This is brush width, brush width, brush width. I really should be making sure that they're not all the same. And so if you've put in some of these, and just, because of Passario, we're going to put some big dark, usually those sky holes in there, they're a little bit darker, but I'm going to just make sure that I'm making different shapes. They're not all the same. And I want to paint some of this around this tree a little bit darker. Now, what you can do, that this is something that I saw in when last time I was away in near art galleries, I saw artists using thick passages of paint like this, but then coming over that with a flat knife and just kind of flattening it out a little bit. And so that's kind of a neat technique that you can use. We learn a lot from each other. And so we're coming near to the end here. I think I'm going to quit here in a minute. I'm thinking this is too dark down here. So I'm going to just add a little bit of a highlight. But I'd love to see what everyone was working on and how things are going so far. And if we have any time for any other questions there, we will continue. So this dot, if it's too much, if on your own work, if you're going, oh, that's really standing out, then just come back. This is when you pull out that little knife or the little brush, and you can just alter the shapes a little bit. Maybe they'd see a few little tree leaves in here and on this edge, so it's not regular. You don't want that. All right. I think we're going to call it on that one. Let's just see, how is everyone doing?
Everyone's able to unmute or show video now too, so you can show off what you've painted or ask some questions.
We also want to talk about Delta Art. I have a student of mine who's from Edmonton. She drops down every once in a while to visit us. And she says, if you can't find it at Delta, you can't find it anywhere. So I haven't been to your store, Kay, but I know that I've ordered online and you guys were fantastic because this paint, I don't think bio paint is being offered in Calgary right now. That will change. But I was interested way back when we had the strike, the postal strike, and I was envying your paint, going, how can I get that? So as soon as the strike lifted, I ordered some. So it's really fun. But I know you have a sale on right now too.
Yeah, so all Liquitex products are on sale.
Oops.
So that's including bio. And if you make an order of Liquitex products until like April 20th, then you can get a free little sample pack of bio, which comes with two cute little tubes of white and quinacridone magenta, I believe.
Oh, nice color.
Yeah.
And you can take those and mix them in with your paints. There's no need to throw out what you have, because that would be really bad for the environment and bad for your pocketbook. But if you're interested, that's a good thing. Is there anyone who's brave enough to show us what's happening? Oh, look at that.
No.
Oh,
That's
nice.
You can't
nice.
see.
Oh,
You have to spotlight or something.
oh, it looks fantastic. I don't know whose name is that. I'm reaching to my screen as
Is
if I
it
could
me,
touch you.
Esther?
Esther,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh,
Okay.
lovely.
Look,
Whoa.
look at the canopy of that tree. That's
I
fantastic.
just
Whoa.
kind of went because I didn't have a reference, so I just
Yeah, you know,
I don't think
sometimes
I don't
that's
know if it's working now. It's kind of stuck.
so I just
do you want some advice? I can give you
yes,
advice.
yes, I would.
So I love that spot of your brown, and I love that you've pushed it so that it's a bit orange. You can bring up an occasional branch that same color, because if you think about how the branches are in the tree, some are going to be in the light, some in the dark, and a lot of your branches at the top are darker, so they look like
Right.
they're in the dark. So just bring just a touch of it there. I love the shape and I love the juiciness of your paint. Oh my gosh, that's so good. So
Thank you.
nice and thick.
We have one from Kirsten too.
Okay.
Let's see.
One of my students
Did
made
you
me.
get mine?
Oh, look how, you know what excites
Oh.
me is how they look so different, because that's the way that this should be, because everyone has their own personality. And when you're painting, like those paint along classes where everyone's painting ends up exactly the same, drive me crazy. And so look, just two of you, it shows your choices in color and your choices in shape. It's fantastic. They look great. This other one's such a dreamy one, isn't it? The one on the one side. And I love that you used orange. Good job.
She likes to eat the orange. What, do you like the orange?
Yeah, yeah, good. Good. And it's always good to paint together with people. That's always fun. I work for Wellspring, and we have a studio class, and it's well, even I teach I call it paint like the master's class. So we study a master's and then we paint, and they always end up different. Everyone's is completely different. And to me, that's what's
Sorry, I
exciting.
used too much paint.
Yeah. So anyone else? It's a safe group. When we did art critiques in school, hey, let's see Judy's.
Judy's.
Oh, nice. Nice. It's a bit in the shade, Judy. Again, I like your texture. Look at that little white cloud behind. Lovely. And were you using this canvas? What did you think of it, Judy?
I hate to say that it was a canvas I had, so
Oh, that's
not a
fine.
Liquitex.
That's fine. It's good to
Bad
use
me,
what we
but
have. No, I love that you're using what you have. We all should
Yeah.
do that.
I even did a orange full coat on the canvas.
Oh, you did an undercoat on that.
Yeah,
That's that's a good. And this is Lisa's here too. Again, look completely different. Do you know that one has almost the sense that you're down looking up on the tree, you know? So you could look up there's a fantastic painter in um oh, where is he from? Peter Fior, and he does these wonderful pine trees. And there's that type of view, Lisa, that you showed us, where it looks like you're down and you're looking up, and it's just this magnificent tree. So the sense of scale in that one is really exciting. So
We
good for
also
you.
have two sets to give away. We have two of the bio sets. One is the Explore set, and the other is the Mixing set. So
Someone gets to take those home today, or
yeah,
are
I
you
will.
going to ship them to them if we're
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah, so they would just have to email me. I can put my email in the chat.
Excellent. Did anyone have any questions about mixing color or trees or this new paint that we have? You get that when you're beginning painting, people we're just excited, aren't we? It's like, oh my gosh, it actually looks like a tree. And then you get to a point where you outpaint your material. So I really want to encourage you to use, good materials. I always used to think, because Liquitex has a student brand that's called Basic, or their introductory brand. And some introductory brands in the past, I know I've had problems with. Yeah, it's interesting. In that paint, they do the same testing that I was telling you about the freeze testing, the light fast testing. They do the same on that line as well, and the pigments are the same as in the higher end. It's just that there's more pigment in the higher ones, and so those are great to use. And so, if especially if you're looking for an economic version to use, and because they have a lot of the medium in them, when you can still use the medium with them, but just play around with it, because I do find sometimes they get quite transparent. But that can be a good thing too. Like we could come into these paintings, and you could do a glaze on top of them and change everything again. And that's something I do a lot in my paintings as well. And so you just use the liquid based or the fluid based medium.
I didn't know that Liquitex owned Winsor Newton, so that's good. That was good to know.
Yeah, that's our sister company. So I knew that because I had a friend who was hired by Winsor Newton years ago, and that's when I found that out. So
Because that's one of my favorite brands.
yeah, they're nice, aren't they? They're
Yeah.
buttery. They have a long history too. Winsor and Newton. We were talking about paint tubes. They were one of the first companies to start using paint tubes and make the paint accessible to us. Before that, we would have to put our paint in sheep bladders. You can imagine. So we're happy for that invention of those paint tubes, and then they perfected it for themselves and used them. Oh, I see Tammy's on so we have some people from all over here. There she is. So Tammy, what did you do?
I actually didn't log in till like halfway through because I
okay.
didn't have the link, so I've just been listening and learning.
So you haven't done 4 of them?
4 of them, no.
Needless to say, I know Tammy.
Don't
So we have people I know from Edmonton and from Calgary. Do we have anyone from other places?
Someone said they were from Texas.
Ooh,
excellent.
Cool.
Welcome.
Yay.
That's always so fun about these paint-alongs.
And the winners of the sets were Joyce Soloway and Tammy Harris.
Oh, Tammy, way to go.
I'm so glad they logged in.
Yes.
All right.
So Joyce said she could come by the store to pick up her set. So I'll just need how we'll get Tammy her set too.
I will send you an email. I gotta grab a pen.
So are there more people who are brave enough to show us? It's okay. And as I said, if you're stuck, I'd love giving advice and helping along. That's something when I started painting I didn't have. So that's one of the reasons I love teaching, is that it's exciting to see what people are doing. And sometimes it's just, even in my own work, if I'm stuck on something, I have a select people I can show it to, and they'll say one thing to me and I go, oh yeah, of course, that's what I need to do. So will be a gentle critique, unlike art school when people were mean and made you cry.
Yeah, Alice won't make you cry.
No.
Is there anyone else? Okay, so well, we have some more time here. So why don't I'm going to show you another technique. So here, let's switch this camera. Everyone's okay? If you're still painting, just keep painting. If not, I was telling you that you can glaze, and this is really cool. So what we're going to do, and usually typically for a glaze, you would use oh, I'm just reaching for my paper towels here. You would use a fluid medium. Now, this range has 4 different types of mediums. If you go to the heavy body acrylics, there's actually 42 different types of mediums. And that's a lot. So usually for my classes, I tell people to buy a fluid medium like this and to buy a gel medium. And then you look at the mediums, they come in different finishes. So this is a gloss. That's typically how the medium starts out. You know, it's glossy. And then they add things to the medium to make it matte. So that just means you have a matte color finish on it, and then there's satin in between. So I'm going to do this, like I could use the liquid medium as best, but I have a whole bunch of mediums sitting here on my palette, so let's use that up. And what I'm going to do here is here, let me just move this so you can actually see on camera what I'm mixing. That would be better. And I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow into it. And so typically when you read the recommendations on the Liquitex site, they tell you to do about, I hope there's no white in that. They tell you to do about 10 parts of medium to 1 part of paint. And it works best if you're using transparent mediums or paint. So when you look at yellow, it's here it says it's semi-opaque. It'll still work pretty well. We could do something like we could put a pink tone on everything. And when you look on the Quin Crimson, it says it's totally transparent. So that might have been a better one to use, but we'll start with the yellow. Actually, let's put some of that in as well. Let's make it orange. Just thinking on this fly of my pants, seat of my pants here. Okay, here we go. So as always, when you open up your paint tubs, put the lids back on, just because it keeps it going and better. It keeps it wetter. There's shelf life on the acrylic paint is, that's a little bit thick. It'll still work. The shelf life on the acrylic paint is about 5 to 7 years. And that's if you make sure that you have it capped. I'm just gonna, just because as I told you earlier about making mistakes, I don't like how that's working. So we're just gonna back up. People have this idea that with artists that everything you do turns out, and that's a fallacy. That's not true. And I can tell you that some of my best work is mistakes. And so I pulled out the gel and I went, you know what? I'm not overly happy. That's not going to show you what I want to show. So I'm just going to back up, and we're going to use the Quin, and this is a liquid medium. So mix it in. I don't want any streaks. And what I can do is I can put that on the whole thing, and it just changes the temperature of the painting. So now it's like looking through rose-colored glasses. And you can decide like how much of this do you want to do. If I wanted to make it more dramatic, I could put a little bit more paint into that medium mixture. So this technique is called glazing. And so if you have a painting that you're going, you know, it's just not working very well, I just, you know, I want to bring everything together, then that's what you can do. No, I'm going to push it a little bit more just to show you, you know, what can we do with this? And let's see if I can pull some of that yellow. I had some white in that yellow before. That's why I think it wasn't working. And for this, you don't want any white in it. It becomes a veil then. So I'm also going to wash my brush out really, really well here. But the materials, you can play around with them, experiment. I always like to take them and try to wreck them, the paintings. It sounds like you're thinking, what are you doing? Oh, look at that. But what happens then is that's how you learn. So that's by doing an orange on there. And I could do that with the whole thing, warm it up a little bit. Or, you know, I could choose what I want to do. Maybe I just want to do the tree and leave the rest of it. And I like that better. That's pulling it up a bit more. But then once that's wet, this gets so fun, is that you can come in with your other paint, and let's just put in the sky so that we have some contrast. So I glazed over that with a lot of medium and a little bit of paint. And now what I can do, I'm just going to go back to that lighter sky again, because whenever you do that glazing on there, it goes darker and darker. And let's see what we can do here.
So Catherine said in the chat, when you're mixing the red with the yellow, to
Yeah.
me, it does not make orange.
Catherine, what type of paint are you using? The AZO yellow medium? Or do you mean when I'm doing it, it doesn't look orange? Here, so can we just, I'm sorry, can we just get a clarification? So I'm sorry, I don't understand.
I was a bit confused by the question.
Yeah. So I'm doing an orange overlay on top of this, so it's not opaque, it's transparent. And I think that's what you're getting at, Catherine. When I'm painting this, I'm painting the orange on top, it's transparent. So I can still see those greens. It's like an orangey green, but it's still green. I think that's what you mean. And that's because I'm using the paint in a transparent way. And so it is using an orange here. This is the color I had. And it is, maybe if I thin it out a little bit more for you, it is kind of a reddy orange. But by mixing those transparent colors, I could develop this whole thing by continuing the transparent colors. But what's kind of fun about doing that, about starting with that color there, I can come to my thicker passages and just highlight a little bit of what's happening. Just add a little bit more contrast in with that. And that's a way that we can again use that thick and thin passages of paint. That's something I don't see a lot in the galleries here, but I know if you go to New York, I can remember seeing, it was a Liberace painting where he had a figure work, and he had some thinner passages and then some thicker passages as well. But you're working with a transparent layer, and then if you wanted to continue that, you could let that dry and then put another layer on top. And you could put a blue on top of the green. It'll make it a blue green, but it's always going to be that little influence of what's underneath. But it's just another way, as I said, that you can use this paint and kind of push it a little bit further if you want. So that's something I like to do with my own work, is I like that idea of decomposing it and then recomposing it again. Okay, let me just, I'm looking for that lovely, I think we're out of it, but I want to mix some of that white into the green. So I hope I answered your question there. If not, just let me know, and we'll kick it another way. I love that. I can remember when I was in school in grade, it was what grade was that? Grade 6. And I asked a math question, and my teacher told me, "Oh, you're not smart like your brother in math." And so I quit doing math. and years later, I have a friend who's a university professor now, but he needed someone to take some intelligence tests, and my lovely brother offered us to him. And one of the things, I came out gifted in math, which I just laugh at still. But there's a lot of math in painting, in art. But, so I'd never think that there's a dumb question, because if that teacher had taken his time to answer my question, I probably wouldn't have felt so intimidated by math. And so, I don't think there are dumb questions. And if I don't understand the question, just, re-ask it, and I'll come back another way and try to answer it, and try, because what we're trying to do is to understand things. So again, that painting there, a completely different type of painting than what we had before. And that's fine. I could even on the bottom here, I because I toned down this, and it's too much like the trunk now. So as I'm doing this, maybe I want to come back in with that really nice hit of lighter color that was on there, because that's going to change that. And I might even want to put a little bit of that in above there as well too. But by using that technique of glazing in with the mediums, it's a way of unifying it. So it's just another way of painting. So we had time because I was quick today. So I thought that there's always different things I can show you. Do we have any other questions before we go? Any more people who are brave enough to show their paintings? I really enjoyed that. That was fun. All right, Kay, maybe you can tell us about the sale that you have coming up.
Oh, Lisa asked, where are you teaching?
Do you know, I just applied for another job. So I don't know if I'm going to get that one, so I can't tell you that one. I teach for Wellspring in Calgary, which is the cancer center. So I teach there, and I do run workshops as well. So if you go to my website, which is www, it's helwigart.com. You'll find my newsletter there. And if you sign up for that, I usually advertise when I'm doing workshops. And as I said, there might be an opportunity where I'm teaching on a weekly basis. I'm negotiating with them right now. So I won't tell you more about that till I know for sure. So, but I'm based out of Calgary. I do come out and do other workshops in other places as well too. So. Great, thanks for that, Lisa. I meant to have my card here and to do some self promotion, and I'm really bad at doing that. So, but if you go to my website, if you're interested to know more of what I paint, and if you look behind my shoulder here, you can see some cloud paintings, and that's very typically what I do paint is big skies. So, but you can see that on the website.
Yeah, I put it in the chat as well. And
oh, thank you.
When I send out the recording link and the survey email, I'll have your links in it as well, and like the materials list and everything. So
Excellent.
yeah.
Excellent. And with that materials link, we stuck to the primary colors because it's so interesting. We get into liking to go buy things. And as I said, now I think everyone's feeling the cost of groceries and different things. So you can paint just with the primaries and white, and you'll learn so much more about color by doing that. And so for Liquitex, the ones Kay is sending out are primary. So it's medium azo yellow. It's quinachrome crimson. Now that's a new color for me, and I'm just falling in love with that color. It looks more to the violet side than orange, but you still can make a really nice orange with it, and it also makes a really lovely purple. And then the phthalo blue. So with just those colors, you have, enough. You can mix grays with them. You can mix a wide variety of really vibrant colors. So that's good. I know they have mixing sets that you can buy as well, and the ones Kay is giving away are the Biotex mixing kits. I know there's a basics mixing kit as well, and there's also a heavy body mixing kit, so you can buy the tubes all together.
Oh yeah, Liquitex has tons and tons of sets.
Yeah.
So if you really don't know what colors to get, there's a set for everything.
Yeah. If you forget, and as I said on the new ones, if you look for this QR code that's on the tubes or tubes, the pots, you just hold your phone over that. That'll take you right to the Liquitex site. They're also really good about sharing paint information. And there's even a helpline there.
Yeah,
If, if you're
there's an
stuck. So if you're stuck and you're just going, I can't remember what she told us about that paint, you can just go on site and they share lots of information. So it's a good one to do.
Mm-hmm.